Emily Carter woke before her alarm on the morning of her 35th birthday, staring at the ceiling while the house stayed quiet around her, and she already knew the day would not feel like birthdays used to. Because something inside her marriage had been slowly drifting, not breaking loudly but thinning like air, making every breath feel lighter and heavier at the same time. And as she moved through the morning routine, shower, coffee, folding laundry, she noticed how Michael DeRose tried too hard to smile, how his words were kind but careful, as if he was carrying a secret that could slip if he wasn't gentle. And when he kissed her forehead before leaving for work, he whispered that he had a surprise plan for the evening, a real one this time, which made her heart lift and sink together. Because hope had become a risky thing lately, and all day she remembered earlier birthdays filled with laughter, friends, and easy love. Back when Michael used to look at her like she was the only place he wanted to be, and by late afternoon the sky turned soft orange, the quiet suburban street outside their Oregon home glowing with early fall calm. While Emily set the table for a simple dinner, telling herself not to expect much, 'cause expectations hurt more when they fell. Yet when she heard a knock at the door just after sunset, sharp and unexpected, her chest tightened, and she glanced at Michael, who froze for a moment before forcing a steady breath and walking toward the door. And when he opened it, the sight stopped Emily where she stood, because the man on the doorstep was Daniel Reed, Michael's old college friend. Someone she had only met once, years ago at a reunion dinner. Someone she remembered as thoughtful and quiet. And now he stood there holding a small gift bag, his. Expression gentle but serious, as if he understood the weight of showing up uninvited on someone else's birthday. And when he said her name and wished her a happy birthday, Emily felt confusion ripple through her instead of joy, because this was not what she imagined, not what she asked for. And as Daniel stepped inside, the air in the room changed, becoming tense yet strangely warm. Like a moment before a storm that doesn't know whether to break or pass. And Michael closed the door behind him, rubbing his hands together, avoiding Emily's eyes, which made her realize this was planned, not a mistake. And dinner passed in short sentences and polite smiles, forks touching plates more than food, while Emily's thoughts raced ahead of the moment, wondering why her husband had chosen this way, this day, this person. And when she finally looked closely at Michael, she saw something she hadn't seen in a long time: fear, mixed with care, like a man who knew he might lose something precious, but believed honesty was the only path left. And as the candles flickered lower and the room grew quieter, Emily understood that her birthday had become more than a celebration. It had turned into a turning point, though she still didn't know where it would lead, only that the knock at the door had already changed everything after dinner. The silence grew heavier than the words spoken, and Emily felt it pressing against her chest as Michael cleared the plates with slow, careful movements, while Daniel remained seated, his posture respectful, his eyes lowered as if he understood he was standing on fragile ground. And when the dishes were finally stacked away, Michael sat across from Emily, his hands shaking just enough for her to notice, which told her this moment mattered more than any gift or cake ever could. And he took a deep breath before speaking, admitting in a calm but strained voice that the past year had been the hardest of his life, not because love was gone, but because he had failed to protect it from distance, from routine, from silence that grew when conversations were avoided. And as he spoke, Emily felt both anger and relief, because she had been carrying the same feelings alone, thinking she was weak for wanting more warmth, more presence, more shared space. And Michael confessed that he had asked Daniel to come because Daniel had once faced a similar breaking point in his own life and had taught him that pretending everything was fine only pushed love further away. And Emily looked at Daniel, searching his face for intention. But she found none that felt threatening, only calm honesty. And Daniel spoke gently, saying he was not there to replace anyone or to cross any lines, but simply to be present, to remind them that understanding often begins when someone finally listens without defending themselves. And Emily felt tears rise because she realized how long it had been since someone had listened to her without rushing to fix her feelings. And Michael admitted that bringing Daniel was his way of saying he was afraid of losing her and no longer wanted to hide behind pride, which stunned Emily more than any dramatic confession could have. Because vulnerability was something Michael rarely allowed himself. And as the conversation unfolded, memories surfaced of late nights spent back to back, instead of face to face, of small disappointments ignored until they felt too big to name. And Emily stood up, pacing the room, her emotions colliding, unsure whether to feel thankful or betrayed. Yet she couldn't deny that something honest had finally entered the room. And Daniel's quiet presence acted like a mirror, reflecting what had been missing rather than adding something new. And when Emily finally spoke, her voice steady but tired, she said she loved Michael but felt unseen. And Michael listened without interrupting, without defending himself. It felt new and unsettling. And in that moment, Emily realized that this birthday gift was not meant to be a person, but a wake-up call, one that forced truths into the open where they could no longer be ignored. And as the night deepened and the house grew still, Emily lay awake later, staring at the ceiling again, her mind racing with questions about whether honesty would heal them or reveal that love alone might not be enough, knowing only that the distance between her and Michael had finally been named. And once named, it could never again be unseen. The days that followed moved faster than Emily expected, as if once the truth was spoken, the world refused to slow down. And Daniel stayed nearby in a small guest rental Michael had arranged, coming by during the day to help with repairs and errands, not hovering, never pushing, yet always present enough to change the air in the house. And Emily tried to keep herself busy, but quiet moments kept finding her. Moments where Daniel would sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and ask simple questions about her life, her work, the things she once loved. Then she found herself answering honestly without planning to, because his listening felt easy and unforced. And she spoke about dreams she had buried under responsibility, about feeling lonely even when she wasn't alone, about loving Michael deeply while feeling like she was slowly fading beside him. And Daniel never judged or rushed her words, which made her feel lighter each time she spoke. And this scared her more than anger ever could, because she realized how much she missed being understood. And Michael noticed the change in her almost immediately, not because she was pulling away, but because she was standing taller, smiling more naturally, speaking with confidence she hadn't shown in months, and it filled him with mixed emotions. Hope that honesty was working, and feared that he had waited too long. And one afternoon he watched Emily laugh softly at something Daniel said. Nothing romantic or dramatic, just a shared moment of understanding, and it struck Michael how rare that sound had become between him and his wife. And instead of reacting with jealousy, he felt a sharp wave of regret, knowing he had once been the person who gave her that feeling. And that evening, Michael asked Daniel to give them space, and Emily sensed the weight of the conversation before. It even began as she and Michael walked through their quiet neighborhood, leaves crunching beneath their feet, the sky dimming into soft blue, and Michael spoke openly, admitting that he had confused stability with connection, that he thought providing and protecting was enough. And Emily stopped walking and faced him, tears forming as she admitted she had stayed quiet too long, afraid that asking for more would sound ungrateful. And for the first time in a long while, they spoke without defending themselves, without interrupting, just listening. And the honesty hurt, but it also felt clean, like fresh air after being indoors too long. And from a distance, Daniel watched them, understanding his role had never been to step between them, but to remind them what real presence looked like. And later that night, Emily sat alone, thinking about how easily feelings could grow when hearts were open, how attraction sometimes came not from desire but from recognition, and she felt conflicted, loyal yet restless, hopeful yet unsure, knowing she stood at a quiet crossroads where comfort, truth, and change all pulled in different directions. And as she looked at Michael sleeping beside her, she realized the hardest part wasn't choosing between people, but choosing whether to step fully into her own emotional truth, no matter where it led. The final evening arrived quietly, without drama or raised voices. And the house felt different, calmer, as if it had already accepted whatever was about to happen, and Emily sensed it the moment she woke up, moving through the day with a strange mix of clarity and sadness. Knowing that endings did not always mean loss, sometimes they meant understanding. And when Daniel came by that night to say goodbye, there was no tension in the room, only honesty. Resting between the three of them, and Emily spoke first, her voice steady, saying that this birthday had changed her not because someone new had entered her life, but because truth had finally been allowed to stay. And she thanked Daniel for reminding her what it felt like to be heard without judgment, to be treated like her thoughts mattered. And Daniel accepted her words with humility, explaining that his presence was never meant to create confusion, only awareness. And then Emily turned to Michael, telling him that bringing his friend had been a risk, but it had shown her something important, that he loved her enough to admit his fear and face it instead of hiding behind silence. And Michael admitted he had been terrified not of losing control, but of losing her heart, and promised that no matter what came next, he wanted their relationship to be built on honesty rather than habit. And Daniel stood, offering a quiet smile before leaving. No long speeches, no dramatic goodbye, just a simple handshake with Michael and a warm nod to Emily. And when the door closed behind him, the house felt still but not empty. And later that night, Emily and Michael sat together on the couch, not trying to fix everything, just sharing space without distance. And they spoke about the future in careful words, not promising perfection, only effort and openness. And as the clock passed midnight, Emily lit a single candle left from her birthday cake, watching the flame dance as she reflected on how close she had come to losing herself, and how the real gift she had received was the courage to speak and be heard. And when she blew out the candle, she felt a quiet peace settle in her chest, understanding that love did not always arrive wrapped in comfort. Sometimes it arrived as truth, and that this birthday would remain the moment she chose to stay awake in her own life. No longer shrinking, no longer silent, but fully present in whatever story came next.